More than 8 Australians die every day by suicide. That's more than double the road toll. 75% of those who take their own life are male. That's according to the Bureau of Statistics. Well, joining me live is Craig Hamilton, a respected radio broadcaster and mental health advocate who has released a new documentary called The Promise. And he joins me live. How are you?
Hi, Janie. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, and well done on the documentary. We're going to talk about that in a minute because it's going to be on for many people to see. But first of all, what made you write this documentary and present it?
Well, I've been working on mental health and mental health advocacy for 20 years. I've written about it, I've spoken about it through my own experience, which was traumatic and it was serious just before the Sydney Olympic Games. And I thought you can either be part of the problem in this area or you can be part of the solution. And I chose pretty early on to be part of the solution, and that's to open up discussion.
And it's a really important one, as we know with these statistics, 75% of people that take their own lives are male. That's huge.
It is. And that's, look, it's a problem that I've thought about a lot as to why the numbers are so high for men who take their lives and die by suicide than women. I think a lot of it comes down to we're not conditioned to have those conversations and to show vulnerability and to actually admit we have a problem. And therefore it gets so serious, and depression particularly can become so great. Suicidal ideation comes into play, and then the most tragic outcome is suicide itself. And so, you know, a big part of this is getting men to talk. And I know how serious my health was before I got help, and so I understand why that happens.
Yeah, and do you mind sharing a bit about your story?
Well, just before the Sydney Olympics, I was working for the ABC and I was going to be part of the commentary team on the Sydney Olympics, which was going to be a career highlight. And that year, 2000, I started to experience depression for the first time. I didn't really know what it was initially, but it got very serious, and it went on for about 7 months and it got worse. It just didn't get better. Slowly but surely I'm on this slippery dip, and you know, not sleeping, not eating, anxiety, social withdrawal, negative thoughts, then despairing thoughts. And I had suicidal thoughts before I even got help. And you know, the back end of that story is I finally got some help and was medicated, but then we find out I have bipolar disorder. And that was just before the Olympics. So that's another story altogether. The highs around that, alongside the lows, the terrible lows of depression.
And thank you for sharing your story, because it's, you know, as you well know, it's so important to be able to, as you said, show your vulnerability and help other people and prevent so many of these cases of suicide. I mean, what would you do with, you know, we have amazing days like Are You OK Day, World Suicide Prevention Days and the like. We're raising awareness, doing documentaries like yourself, you know, with The Promise, again, which we'll get to in a moment. But what would you say to people listening now that perhaps have a friend, a loved one who are seeing those signs of isolation or depression and so forth?
The big message is you can recover. I think that's it. My story is a story of hope because I've been in that place and got help, thankfully, and then could work my way back with some strategies and some tools and some medication to get better to a point where I could become an advocate. But, you know, for others, it's a difficult one because a lot of the time the person who is struggling doesn't realise they have a problem until it becomes serious. And so it's, you know, I think for those who are supporters, family members, friends, find out about depression, find out about mental health issues and what they look like so that they can actually help support someone when the time comes.
Yeah, and don't give up on them as well, you know, just to keep making sure that they are okay. And when you're in that situation where you are thinking that you want to end your life, how do you pull yourself out of that?
With great difficulty, because when your health becomes so bad and it has deteriorated and you're such in an emotionally painful state, then you actually need intervention. You can't help yourself at that stage because, and look, I'm only speaking here through my own experience, but people don't realise here that the size of this problem, you mentioned these statistics, there's 8 or 9 suicides on average every day in Australia. The suicide rate is more than double the road toll. That doesn't include those people who attempt suicide and survive. It doesn't consider or acknowledge those that think about suicide and never act on it. So, you know, we've got to have a lot more open discussion, a lot more honest discussions to turn it around, turn the whole, you know, conversation around.
What are some of the reasons we hear a lot about isolation? I mean, these statistics, they don't seem to be lowering. I could be wrong. Is that right? They're not lowering. We are in the lucky country, so-called, but you know, we've got so much connection via our phones, as we know, in that old, you know, narrative of we are so connected but so disconnected. Is that one of the reasons why we are having these numbers?
Look, I think it's got something to do with it. I mean, as far as technology goes, you know, mobile phones and social media is fantastic, but there's a downside to it. When you've got vulnerable teenagers who are looking at images of, you know, the images of that are photoshopped to within an inch of their lives, and then they compare themselves to that, and then there's online bullying. That's another story altogether. Our kids are growing up now in that era. That's the reality. So they need to be, I suppose, educated about that. And I think we're still seeing the aftermath of the impact of COVID. And we can't understate that, because anyone who had a depression, an anxiety, a mental health issue through COVID, when the whole thing shuts down, all of those situations are exacerbated.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Wow. It sure is. And again, it's not going away anytime soon. But what is really good are people like yourself sharing your story and your documentary, The Promise. It was screening in Newcastle last week, and I believe it was a very successful screening. And you have one coming up at the Ritz in Randwick on October 4.
Yeah.
So tell us about it.
Well, that's the next one. The Ritz at Randwick on October 4. And then we're taking it around Australia. And these are, you know, the select, I suppose, screenings. There's only 12 of them because it's a 2024 film. The director, Jai Curry, who's just done an amazing job on this film. And I will be doing a question and answer session after all of these. And, you know, we go to Canberra, Shellharbour, Melbourne, Adelaide, Coffs Harbour, Brisbane, Mackay, Cairns, back to Newcastle. There's another one in Sydney, and I think that's it. So looking forward to it, really looking forward to taking it on tour.
All right, we'll look out for The Promise, a documentary. Thank you so much. It's really good to see you, and all the best, and thanks so much for sharing your personal story especially.
Good on you. Thanks, Janie.
And if you or anyone you know is feeling distressed, you can call Lifeline 13 11 14.